Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your midday market report, August 17th, 2022, our weekly trip to PA in the house. If you were here just an hour ago, less than that, I was high above the rink at the Garden with Andrew McGinnis from Wager Talk and McGinnis Picks, talking CFL World Juniors as he gets ready to go to Vegas for the Wager Talk meet and greet. Well, our weekly trip to PA is on Friday at 2:30. And I get a nice little DM from our co-host, our star of this show. Says, "Hey, Mr. Dawson, I'll be wheels up, brother. I'm going to Vegas." And I'm like, holy shit, you're right. So we figured we do the Wager Talk Daily Double today. We bring home two stars, Andrew McGinnis and Dan Alexander, both experts in their crafts. And we're going to make it happen here today. We're going to get Dan a good send-off. We're going to get all his picks for the Premier League lacrosse this weekend. And we're going to be following him. I am jealous as hell as these two guys will be out in Vegas and rubbing elbows with the mayor of Vegas himself, Mr. Sharapan, and all those good people there at the Westgate, at the Circa, wherever their hearts desire. But let's bring him in. He's got to be chomping at the bit saying, "Dawson, let's go." Here he is, the one and only Mr. Dan Alexander.
Yeah, I like the way that you put it, Jeff, because it made it sound like things went right for you, that you go back-to-back McGinnis. I'm the producer behind the scenes for his show, Puck Time. You can catch throughout the season during hockey. I also do the Prop It Up show with him on Friday behind the scenes. So I know McGinnis well, and I'm glad that you're excited about it because that's a tough 1-2 punch. You got to have McGinnis talk your ear off for 45 minutes, have me come rant at you at lacrosse for 30 minutes. So, man, you earn the drinks that'll be flowing tonight for happy hour. The appetizers that are always on East Coast Sports Investors, they're going to taste a little bit extra after going back-to-back with us two yahoos. Happy to be with you, brother.
We're super stoked, I should say. It is the finale. I can't believe I'm saying that in lacrosse. You blink and it's, all-star break. And next thing you know, here we go. We're in the last week. Bring us back to last weekend. The results, the props, and what happened to lead us up to the final week.
Yeah, I think as far as the props went, because we got that nice plus 145 on our best bet of the week on Rob Pinnell going over the 2.5 weeks, it wasn't awful. But, I feel like I forced it a little bit on those two that we liked the over half assist. It was two players that typically aren't, players in the assisting game. I just thought, really nice advantageous numbers, but the books got us again because that plus money, that plus 185, if it's too good to be true, maybe it is. It is exactly that. So, wish we dialed back on those and didn't force those. But overall, it was a great week and another great week to be betting this PLL live, because if you were following along live, there was a Redwoods game last week in Salt Lake City, and we said attack of the overs may be continuing. Well, to start the game between the Water Dogs and Redwoods, after one quarter, it was a 5-5 game. So 10 goals in the first quarter. The books say, oh my God, we only have a 24.5 on this game. If you were following along live, 34.5 they hung, Jeff. That game ended up with 26 total goals. 34.5 bettors were loving it. And if you had the attack of the overs, you hit that over 24.5 as well with a beautiful middle. So when you get to hit both sides, that's why I love live betting so much. But the story of last weekend, Jeff, is that some way, somehow, the one-win Cannons come into this final week of the season potentially able to make the playoffs. Now they have to get through the Whip Snakes to do it, so that's a pretty tough proposition, but the book's already reflecting that they think the Whips might be a little too much to handle for the Cannons. So really what you're tracking this week, there's a little bit of positioning that can happen, but the Whips are your number one seed. That's absolutely signed, sealed, delivered. The real thing to watch is the Cannons game this weekend against the Whip Snakes and the Chaos game this weekend as they're taking on Atlas. Atlas looking to bounce back, and we'll get into all the lines here in just a few moments. We'll break down, how we're going to be betting it. However, the way that these playoffs are determined are by obviously how many games you win, how many games you lost, but then that ultimate tiebreaker is your goal differential. So currently the Cannons only have one win and they're minus 27 on the goal differential. Chaos is 2-7 with a 24 goal differential, and minus 24 goal differential. So really you could see the Cannons sneak in this back door if they win against the Whip Snakes and this Chaos team loses by 2 or more goals. The Cannons are in the playoffs some way, somehow. That's crazy to think about, but that's what I'm looking at this weekend is how those kind of games switch out, because that's really the only playoff implications outside of some jockeying of position that's going to be happening this weekend.
Is there in the market the MVP? Any other than the games itself? Any props? Not props, but season-long things that someone could jump into, or they seem to be pretty well locked into?
No, that's a great question, because what I think you do this week, if you have Barstool Sportsbook, everywhere else is hanging minus 165 all the way down to, plus 165 all the way down to plus 135 on the Whip Snakes to win the title. Barstool comes out this week, and we'll talk about them when we get into this Whip Snakes Cannons game. Not only do they open the Cannons game at a 3.5 line, and we know how much we love 2.5s in this league, they also went crazy off market with the number they hang on the Whip Snakes to win the title. Again, the Whip Snakes are automatically in the semifinals because we have quarterfinals, semifinals, and the finals, and they hung a 2-1 on Whip Snakes to win the title. So if I'm a savvy bettor, what I'm doing now is I'm putting at least one unit on the Whip Snakes plus 200 because they're going to be favorites semifinal. If they win in the semifinal, they're going to be favorites in the final. So at a 2-1 number, if you put half units on each of those teams against the spread, if you want to hedge out of it in the semis and the finals, you've locked in a profit either way through the rest of the playoffs. So that's the one, season-long play that I would still hit right now. If you can get Whip Snakes at 2-1, you're locking in a profit for the rest of the year. And when we hear lock in a profit, Jeff, we like hearing those words because it's rare you're able to beat the books in something like that coming down the stretch here. So if you can get Whips plus 200, it's offered on Barstool. You shop around, you might even be able to find a little bit better. Whips plus 200 is a no-brainer that you'll automatically be profitable on.
You're talking about this week jockeying for position. Now, it's not that big of a deal unless there's a team that might have your number or you're trying to stay away from them. Is there anyone else that you could see some value without knowing this week's results and the actual seedings that you think they're overvaluing or undervaluing at this point?
Yeah, that's where it gets really tough because at the bottom, one of the plays that I would love is Atlas, but they've also fallen back a little bit. And regardless what happens with them this weekend, they're going to be in the quarterfinals. That if they win that matchup in the quarterfinals, they'll be going on to face the Whip Snakes, and it's a team that they've never beaten before. So, if you want to say Lightning can potentially strike, all right, hitting Atlas plus 500. Archers show a little bit of value as well, but at this point, because those teams are going to be underdogs, rather than putting money out right now for a plus 500 payout, I know that it's juicy. You're not going to have a hedge out opportunity on any of those plays because those teams are likely, once they face against the Whip Snakes, are going to be playing underdogs. And with the Whip Snakes, why I like that plus 200 is because you're already through the quarterfinals. Like if you're putting a plus 500, that could be dead quarterfinal weekend. It could be dead semifinal weekend. With the Whips, all we need is one, and we're insanely profitable on a plus 200 ticket. So I wouldn't force on any of these. I mean, everybody is always messaging you, Jeff, on the side. Hey, give me one of those bets where I can bet $5 and win $100,000. You know what I mean? There's a reason why every book, every tweet that they put out is, hey, press this parlay or, hey, press this long odds. I think there's better ways to attack it on a game-by-game basis where if you really like one of these teams, Why not go on them on the money line? And then next week, you put $10 on them. So then you have $20 for next week. Take that $20 and roll it on over. It's no different than putting $20 on them now at a nice payout. I just don't think it's quite worth it. And I just think there's more, positive expected value wagers that you can make than taking one of these long odds. The only one I would do is that 2-1 on the whips, unless you have tickets you're holding already.
Last question before we dig into the games. Is the MVP end regular season, or does it count through the playoffs?
So here's the thing, is they tell me it ends at the regular season. But last year, Blaze Reardon wins the title. His team snuck into the playoffs at the end of the regular season. And his stats, weren't world beating at the end of the regular season. So they tell me it is a regular season award, and you see that in so many different sports. The MVP that Bryce Harper won, I'm rocking my Phillies lid today. Phils didn't even make the playoffs, so that is a regular season award. If you're looking at the MVP in the NBA, Jokic can't do squat once he gets to the playoffs. That is a regular season award. I just think with what I saw last year with Blaze Reardon coming out of nowhere to win the MVP, they have to factor in playoffs here. But if it is regular season, I mean, you're looking at minus 140 already on Trevor Baptiste. And the second favorite behind him is Lyle Thompson at plus 250. Lyle Thompson's team might not even make the playoffs. So if it is a regular season award, 70% faceoff percentage, the next best guy is Joe Nardella at around 60%. I think that's telling me Trevor Baptiste is your MVP. I've been fooled before by these markets, but if it is truly a regular season award, I don't see how anyone other than the faceoff specialist, Trevor Baptiste for the Atlas, becomes the only second faceoff player to ever win an MVP in professional lacrosse. I think that's what you're seeing this year. I wouldn't tell you to go lay that minus 140 because I've been burnt laying bad prices on Joel Embiid before, so I can't suggest people to be doing that, Jeff.
And where are we playing this weekend?
So we're done playing at altitude. We were tracking how did that really affect some of these teams? How did it look? Overs last week were again, ho-hum. So we went over in the Water Dogs game, and it looks like over in the Atlas Whip Snakes game by the hook. So overs went 2-2 last weekend. So my whole theory on, they're playing at altitude, it really wasn't able to be extrapolated through those two games where they played at altitude 2 straight weeks. I believe overs went 5-3. So, I thought it may play to unders. It didn't turn out that way. So, this week, they're going to be going to Seattle, Washington. So the furthest west that we've gone, always excited to bringing in some new fans. They'll be in Tacoma, Washington at the Tacoma Dome this weekend. Games are also on Saturday and Sunday. So folks, not just watching today, typically on Friday, we're telling you get your action in because these games are starting at 6. Watch this show leading up to these games that start at 7 p.m. Eastern on Saturday night. All of them on ESPN Plus, however. No nationally televised games as it stands right now.
All right, Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern, Chrome's Redwoods. Right now, the Chrome minus 160, Redwoods plus 130. Under over 23 and a hook, juiced 115 both ways. You can grab the Chrome minus a goal and a half, minus 105. Or the Redwoods plus a goal and a half, minus 125.
So it'll only be the third time in the last 2 years that these two teams are meeting up. And the last time that the Redwoods played Chrome, it was back on June 10th earlier this season. And they had the fewest goals ever scored in a professional lacrosse game. Redwoods mustered up just 3 scores throughout 48 minutes of play. Other team drops 12, so Chrome beats them handedly. A total falls in that one of 15, and we were looking at a 23.5. Since that point, however, the Redwoods have been one of the most efficient offenses in the league. The last 4 weeks, 16, 12, 15, and 14 goals. These guys are just flying over. However, something's got to give. We're looking at a 23.5 in this game, Jeff, and that gets me a little bit incredulous because these Redwoods are a 6-3 to the over this season, while Chrome are 7-2 to the under this season. So you got the over team coming in. We got the under team coming in. What gives? For what it's worth, 5 of those 7 unders for Chrome came with the 23.5 total. So when there's a 23.5, it's usually low for a reason with this Chrome team. I just wish I had a crystal ball to tell me, do the Redwoods look as bad as they did the first game? I think there's going to be some added motivation on the Redwoods coming into this one. I think you're also seeing a little bit of recency bias on why the Chrome are favored. I like the Redwoods. We got Redwoods with an outright winner plus 1.5 last week. I think I'm going back to the well. I know it's a bit of a contrarian play with what we've seen from Chrome. Are they peaking at the right time now? I think Redwoods are playing some of the best lacrosse you can find right now. So I lean over that 23.5, but if you're asking me for a pre-flop play here, give me that 1.5 at a pretty nice price to do it at only around like minus 110, minus 120 for the Redwoods, backing them. Give me that 1.5 all day long.
And do we have a prop?
I see. Here's the thing is I feel like books are afraid of this last week because I think it's challenging as handicappers to kind of try and find with this team's not much to play for who's going to have any motivation. And I think the odds makers are just saying, holy shit, we have just as many question marks because MGM still hasn't opened up a line. They haven't opened up their future market. They haven't opened up a line for this week. So that tells me the odds makers are palms up on what's happening this week. So I haven't dove in as much to the player props just because they just started rolling in about 24 hours ago. But I don't see why we don't at least look to go back to the well. It's not an official play yet for me here on a Wednesday. Stay tuned to my Twitter at Newbie Talks on Friday. I'll tweet out my whole slate as I do each and every Friday, typically after Jeff and I get off the air. But I'll have a couple extra days. Once wheels land in Las Vegas, you'll get my whole card on my Twitter. But Rob Pennell over this 2.5 assists, cashed for us last week, cashed for us the week before, cashed for us the week before that. He had 6 total points last week, or 6 assists, had 8 total points, added 2 goals on top of it. And then before that, as I said, 3 goals or 3 assists, 2 assists the week prior, so we would have lost that week, but the week prior to that, he had 4 assists. So this Redwoods team has been at its absolute best since Rob Pennell has been a facilitator. I don't see why that ends here. He's going to be totally motivated to get the taste out of his mouth against Chrome. So I don't know, Jeff. As I talk about it more, I think I'm talking myself into going this over at a nice plus 125. It was plus 145 last weekend. I still think it's a pretty good price that, we've cashed this exact prop. What would that be? 4 out of the last 5 weeks. It's like in Major League Baseball. Just keep riding the streaks. You're going to lose one of them. You're going to lose 2 of them, but you're going to win 4 or 5 in the process too. I think I might be going back to the well on Rob Pennell over the 2.5 assists.
9:30, Archers, Water Dogs. Let's see here. Archers minus 40 on the money line, Water Dogs plus 110, and under over 24 and a hook minus 125. You can get the under 24 and a hook minus 105. Archers minus a goal and a half plus 110, or Water Dogs plus 1.5 minus 140.
Now, this one is a bit of a head scratcher when I'm looking at this line, because here's the thing. Water Dogs finally lose a game last week after they won 5 straight weeks. There were some overtime sprinkled in. If you remember, that 1.5 that we got home outright was on Redwoods. What we were talking about last week was it's unsustainable for this Water Dogs team to keep winning in overtime and keep winning by 1 goal. And it finally came up to bite them in the ass. But you can't take away the fact that they won 5 straight before that. They lost 4 straight to start the season. They win 5 straight. They lost again. Does that mean a 4-game losing streak's incoming and write the Water Dogs off? I'm not sure, because if you look at the Archers, they finally won a game after they lost 2 straight. So I think at this number, you're seeing a little bit of recency bias and having the Archers favored. I know that they have to make somebody favored in this game, but I don't know. It's a bit of a head scratcher to me to see Archers as the favorite in this one, because over the last 6 weeks, Water Dogs have surely been the better team. And this is an important game for both of these teams, because There's doing something this December called the Championship Series, and that's going to be fun for us to bet on. It's going to be a sixes tournament, and only the top 4 teams that finish are going to qualify for that tournament. So this game really decides, out of Archers and out of Water Dogs, not only who's going to be the 4 seed this year, or potentially the 3 seed with what happens with Atlas, it's going to decide who gets an extra paycheck in December, because an undisclosed amount of money will go to each of the players who qualify for this championship series. So this is a game where there's going to be motivation, because who doesn't want a little bit of extra paycheck at the end of the year heading on into the playoffs? So I lean with the Water Dogs because I'm getting the goal and a half with a team that has shown that they're better. I worry because they're a very streaky team, 4 straight wins, 5 straight losses. However, Water Dogs have just shown the summation of the season to be a little bit more of a reliable squad than this Archers team. Archers are up, Archers are down. I'm going to go with the Water Dogs, and I could see this game being a little bit defensive. So tied for the highest total, 24.5. It's a lean to the under on this one, but I think you're going to be hearing a theme this week, and that's give me the points with the Dogs in a week that's going to be hard. I ain't laying no points in a week that's going to be hard to handicap motivation, but both these teams should be pumped up. I think the Dogs could win outright in this one, and they've been pretty good historically as Water Dogs as well, or as underdogs as well. So I'm looking towards the Doggos in this one.
Any props that you've seen?
In this Archers game, the thing is I've been burnt trying to go to the well on this Archers team. Because last week or 2 weeks ago, Will Manny was one of my favorite bets. He loses by the hook. Last week, Grant Ament was one of my plays that I gave out here. He loses by the hook. So I'm done. Just give me the underdog in this one. No props for me in this, depending on if MGM, when they opens up their numbers, they didn't do play or save props last week. I would maybe look for like an Adam Gittleman save over. That's the goalie for the Archers. Other than that, I just think you're fortunate on a team that you never know who's going to be the guy every week. So, sure, I wouldn't talk you out of if you want to play some Kieran McCardle on the Water Dogs, some of his overs, his point total over. I'm not going to talk you out of it, but just nothing that really got me too excited in this one, because I think there's some good numbers on some of these player totals, and I'm not getting burnt by the Archers anymore. I'm swearing them off. No more player props on the Archers the rest of the year.
All right, Sunday, Whip Snakes, Cannons, 3 o'clock. Whip Snakes minus 300, Cannons plus 235. Winning, you're in. We like those games.
Yeah.
Potentially. Under over 23 and a hook, juice to 115 on both sides. You can, on DraftKings, you can get the Cannons plus 2.5 minus 105, Whip Snakes minus 2.5 minus 125. You also talked about another site where you were initially getting 3.5. So take it away.
Yeah, the 3.5 has since gone. I recorded this morning 8 in the Box with Brad Howe and Dave Sherapan. You can find that anywhere where you can get your podcast. At the end of every show, they ask me to give out a lacrosse winner for the folks. We try. We've definitely got more winners than losers this season, but it's funny. I said, if you can bet this 3.5, go and do it now. There's no guaranteed things. I'm not telling you go over your bankroll to take the 3.5, but underdogs in the PLL, we talk about it nearly every week, Jeff. They cover at a 65% rate. So the last 2 years, 51 and 27 underdogs against the spread. And that's only with 1.5 and 2.5 spreads. So we play numbers, not teams. I know that the Whip Snakes have just rolled. They just destroyed the Atlas, which is a much better team than Chrome. However, this is a win and in game for Cannons, whereas the Whip Snakes really have nothing to play for. Now, I'm not saying they're going to show up and roll over. I actually saw a video earlier today of Coach Jim Stagnita, head coach of the Whip Snakes, in the locker room after the game saying, you guys are all playing next week. We still have something to play for next week, and it's pride, which I didn't really like seeing, because I was kind of hoping we would get this 3.5, and then the word would come out that, they're not going to be even playing some of their starters, or their starters won't play the whole game. It sounds like Coach Staggs is out for blood, which concerns me a little bit. but I still lean with the Cannons getting that 2.5. We just know it's been a profitable spot. However, the only caveat is, yes, underdogs have been profitable, but Cannons as underdogs this year haven't been too profitable. So there's 22 and 14 against the spread have underdogs been this year. Taking out what happened last year, that 51 and 27 number. Let's just look at this season, because like the NFL, every season is different. This is a shorter season like the NFL, so you can't really dive into as much of a data as you would with a long season like the NBA or the MLB. So just 10 weeks. Let's look at those 10 weeks. And underdogs in those 10 weeks this year are 22 and 14 against the spread. Just 4 of those 22 games have been the Cannons. Yeah, they're just 4 and 5 against the spread this season. Every single game they've been underdogs. They've been underdogs for a reason. So you might need some antacid. You might need some Tums in this one, Jeff, to back them. But we see the 2.5. We take the 2.5. We're going to be profitable more often than not. Even this season with the kind of lower rate that we've seen these 2.5s, still you're 3-2 blindly backing 2.5-point dogs. So it's been a lot less than if you go the last 2 years, and you would be 9-4 against the spread backing 2.5 dogs. It's come back to the pack here a little bit as the odds makers have adjusted, but I see the 2.5. I'm taking the 2.5. If you can still find an offshore 3.5, I love that. But I don't know. There's a lot of motivation for the Cannons, and what do the Whip Snakes have to play for? I get it that Coach Stagg says we got to play for pride. Hard to sell players whose bodies are beat up on, hey, let's get this game for the Gipper, especially when it doesn't matter at all. They're already in the championship series. They're already the number 1 seed. I just think if you do play your players, you maybe take them out in the 3rd or 4th, because you don't want the rust of them not playing for 2 straight weeks, because there is a bye between now and the playoffs. And actually it would be 3 straight weeks because they're not playing in the quarterfinals. So I expect to see Whip Snakes players, but maybe they don't dive as hard for the ground ball. Maybe they don't ride as hard on the ride because, hey, what do I have to play for? Where if the Cannons, if they're going to go, they better go now. That's the way that I would look in this game. But at only 2.5, it's not as great as I feel at 3.5. But still, we got to take that 2.5, Jeff.
Any prop that stands out to you, or is it another pass?
No, I think there is some value here on some of these props, simply because how motivated are these Whip Snakes players? Now, here's the thing is you could throw out the 3rd string of Whip Snakes and they could probably beat the Cannons by 2.5 goals. Like it's just, this team is so good. However, I think there may be some value on maybe some point total unders with some of these Whip Snakes players. So I'll just run down all the Whip Snakes on the board and what their totals are just real quick. And we can maybe kind of talk through which are going to be advantageous, because you have Brad Smith, the guy who burnt us on the assist. His total points seems high to me at 2.5, minus 130 to back the under. Matt Rambo, 4.5. minus 170 to back that under. Mike Chanachuk under 2.5, minus 130. You're looking at Zed Williams under 3.5, minus 110. So I think there might be some value on some of those players just looking under, because here's the reality is, again, they don't have much to play for. And while Stagg said the players are going to be playing, what's it stopping from one of these players, hitting themselves on the head? Let me get a sub, let me come off the sideline. So I think, maybe some of those higher totals, I get that Matt Rambo is rolling right now and it's minus 170. So I'm probably not going to play that one in case I can get a little bit less of juice. But Zed Williams at 3.5, minus 110, he's been right around that number even when they had motivation. Like, he had a big game last week, but who's to say that that wasn't because they wanted to empty the tank, get the 1 seed, and then rest a little bit. So I think if there's one, Jeff, that I probably will fire on, I'm going to look at that Zed Williams under 3.5. And then I think as just kind of a let's go back to the well, 2.5 points. I know it's minus 130 if you want to go under on Brad Smith. That seems a little bit high to me. So maybe even what I'll do, I never really suggest parlays, but You bet this one together at a -110 and a -130, your payback's going to be about like 2-1. So just like throw a half unit on those two together. And then if the thought that these players aren't going to go the whole game, probably both of those guys are going to be able to get those home. Maybe you go like 0.75 on Zed Williams and 0.25 for a full unit on Brad Smith, and then do the parlay at a half unit between the two of them, because I think both of those could hit if the way that we're thinking goes home. And even if, you know, the way I'm looking at this doesn't come true, I think that Zed Williams under, there's some value on that, a number that's been around 2.5. You know, because of his big week last week, you're looking at a nicer number there. So maybe it comes even a little bit bigger once we see MGM. But if I had to pick one, give me that Zed Williams under the 3.5. I'd also sprinkle a little bit on Brad Smith under 2.5. Both of those -110 and -130 respectively. So not awful juice on some props there.
The finale, 5:30 p.m. Atlas and Chaos. Currently Atlas -175, Chaos +140. Another total of 24 and a hook, juiced under -120. You can get the Atlas minus a goal and a half right now, -120, and the Chaos plus a goal and a half, -110.
Yeah, and Atlas, they just got absolutely throttled. They look the worst they have all year. Whipsnakes takes them down 16-8. So they don't even reach double-digit goals. Rough for Atlas after a week when they just lost in overtime. So it's been 2 straight losses for Atlas. They haven't won, or they haven't lost 3 straight all year long, if you're looking for, you know, maybe a way to play this one on the money line. However, this one, again, I think is really hard to handicap, because if I could get inside the mind, if I could get inside the locker room of this Chaos team, do they want to go back to the playoffs? You know what I mean? They've just kind of been sleepwalking through the season, a win here, a win there, you know, scoring some goals here, scoring some goals there, but they haven't been the team that scared you like they did last year every week, even since they've gotten their players back. Yes, they're competitive, but at the end of the game, you just kind of see them start shrinking up. So if I could handicap the minds of Chaos and have a little crystal ball on how motivated they are, because the thing is with Chaos is they're in the playoffs right now. And what, this game goes on Sunday. So they'll know with the Whipsnakes Cannons game going on Saturday, they'll know, like, if the Cannons lose this game, I'm going all in on Atlas, because if the Cannons lose this game on Saturday, Chaos is already in. You know what I mean? Like, they have nothing to play for. It doesn't matter. However, if Cannons somehow pull off the unthinkable and knock off the Whipsnakes, this game becomes ultimately important for Chaos, because we talked about the beginning of the game, or at the beginning of the show, about how the seeding will be determined. So let's say Cannons win the game, and Cannons win the game against Whipsnakes by, let's say 2 goals, right? Let's say they get an empty net goal at the end of the game. So that would bring their scoring differential down to an impressive -25. So the reality is, for Chaos, if Cannons were able to bring that differential down to -25, Chaos are still in the playoffs as long as they don't lose the game. Because they are a -24. So if they lose the game by 1 goal, it's going to be a push. And then you have to dive in a little bit deeper. And I'm not sure what that second tiebreaker is going to be. The score differential is the first tiebreaker. I'm not sure. I guess it would probably be common opponents, like if they played one twice, who beat them and who lost to them, which would eliminate the Cannons. But this game will be determined by what happens on Saturday. If Cannons win on Saturday, I think Chaos plus 1.5 is a good bet. If Cannons lose on Saturday, I would take that plus money with Atlas, lay the 1.5 in a bounce back game for them, in a game that they want to show last week wasn't how it was going to go. Because again, if the Chaos really, it doesn't matter to them, what are they going to do? I wouldn't be shocked if the Chaos are guaranteed in, if their players kind of roll over and get a free bye week heading on into the quarterfinals as well, and don't really go as hard, because that's what's going to decide this game. So I think stay tuned to us on Twitter, because I'm sure you're going to be sending out the bat signal. Newbie, we saw the Cannons lose last night. What are we betting on? And vice versa. You know, I'll be chirping your way and letting you know, because the way to bet this game is decided on what happens Saturday between whip snakes and cannons. I think that's the better way to do it, rather than forcing a play and having your whole entire handicap get flipped on its ear when cannons win or cannons lose, and then what you thought was going to play itself out on the field is completely null and void. I think that's just the smarter way to do it. Don't force the action now. Just wait to see where you're going to have some advantageous information that's probably not going to be built into the line by the odds makers.
So I heard you say earlier, so this is the final week. The following week is a week off?
Yeah, so into the quarterfinals, there will be no games. So the week of, what would that be, August 27th, there will be no games. Everybody has a guaranteed bye week. And then the quarterfinals are up in Boston, baby. Me and my boy Hutton Jackson hopping in the car Friday, September 2nd, and heading on up for the quarterfinals in Boston, September 3rd weekend. So no games next weekend, bye week for everybody in the league to kind of get ready for the playoffs and, rest those bumps and bruises.
All right. So like Andrew has next week off. You will have next week off as we are preparing for the fall.
See, you did something right here, Jeffrey, because you had to have Andrew and I back-to-back shows, and now you're like, now I get a week off from him. Thank God, baby. So the stars aligned for you on that one, man.
Well, wait till the following week when I tell you, okay, I have to bring a daughter up to Yukon, actually the 26th, so we're okay there. But the following week, on the 1st, my other daughter moves to Boston. On the 2nd and 3rd, I will be driving to New York City to draft in my high-stakes fantasy football. Ooh. And then in the 4th, wheels up at 6 a.m., I will be heading to Vegas.
Oh, see? Man, we're just missing each other on multiple different occasions. I'm missing you here. You're missing me there. Well, we'll have to eventually figure out a time when we'll all be getting together, man. That's going to be one hootenanny for sure.
I might have to take the drive up to Philly. I've never seen a football game in Philly.
Hey, I got season tickets. You gotta climb a little bit. You got Gillette behind you. Right about where your hairline is right about where we're going to have to climb up to get to my seats. But, hey, I always got a ticket for you, brother. So you let me know when you want to come down to Philly. The house is open. I know the best cheesesteak spots. I know the best hot wing spots. And I also got, the inside track on how to get around some of that traffic around Lincoln Financial Field. So mi casa y su casa, Jeff, and you're welcome anytime. Even Patriots fans, we welcome into the link with open arms, brother.
Well, I can't wait. I just, again, have a safe trip. You're going to be at Westgate. You'll be in good hands. Is your buddy Carl already there, or is he going to meet you there?
He's shipping out on Friday as well. So he gets in around 11 Vegas time. I get in around noon Vegas time. So I'm probably going to have to drag him out of a hotel or an airport bar second I get to the airport and say, Carl, let's go. We got to get to the Westgate, buddy. Get off the stool. Those Bloody Marys flowing a little bit too easy. So he's heading out Friday as well. And Jeff, just one thing I want to correct. I was misspeaking when I said that Whip Snakes Cannons game is on Saturday. It's Sunday, but it is the first game of the day. So sorry about that. That was just me getting my signals crossed, had my notes mixed up a little bit. We will know about this Atlas Chaos game if it means anything for Chaos, because the Whip Snakes play the Cannons at 3 o'clock Eastern time. So it'll be like an emergency betting alert because we got to get it in between the games, 30 minutes, but we'll know who we're betting on. Are we back in Atlas laying the goal and a half, or are we taking the goal and a half with Chaos? We'll know that around 5 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday. So stay tuned to Jeff and I on Twitter for that.
Yes, indeed. SoCal. Oh, here we go. SoCal. Ever make a cheesesteak but use Korean bulgogi beef instead of cheese, super spicy mayo, and add jalapenos?
SoCal DGen, I have never done that, but I got a plan for dinner tonight now. That sounds damn good. And I'm not like one of these like Philly cheesesteak purists where they're like, no, oh, what? You're putting peppers on a cheesesteak? It's just like, dude, if you're not eating it, who cares? Unless it's ketchup on a hot dog. That's a whole nother debate. But I do ketchup on my cheesesteak, man. That little bit of sweetness sets off that saltiness. So the Korean bulgogi with a little bit of cheese, some super spicy mayo, add jalapenos. SoCal might be onto something. I don't know if SoCal's better at coming up with these trends or coming up with recipes. That sounds damn good, Jeff.
Well, we don't give out locks here, but SoCal, you get the lock of the day. How's that?
Lock it up, baby.
The scroll has been working the whole time, my brother, and they can follow you obviously on Twitter at Newbie Talks, at Bet on Lacrosse. Of course, the Cash Consideration Show, Wager Talk, 8:30 a.m. WEEU, and of course, at Premier Lacrosse. Any other spots that you want to give them right now?
That's the way to go. That's the way to find me. And again, don't have the banner behind me. I'm locked downstairs here in the basement today. So we got, as Jeff said, you can follow me all those places. Best spot to find everything. Just follow me at Newbie Talks. I'm going to be recording in about an hour with my guy Diggs for this week's Over and Back edition, the final week of the regular season. So we'll be getting his thoughts on the entire slate. He's going to have some players that he thinks could have some advantageous matchups, could have some big days. So tune into that. That's going to be dropping on YouTube on the Premier Lacrosse League's channel tomorrow around noon. So Over and Back, the weekly PLL betting show you don't want to miss, outside of the one that Jeff and I do every week, man. Jeff, you earned yourself some drinks and apps, buddy. Go get them, man.
The one and only Dan Alexander at Newbie Talks, myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest. We thank everyone that watched, listened. If you're not following, just jump on over to YouTube, Twitch at East Coast Sports Investors. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. Do the same for Dan. Always a pleasure. Again, thank you. Safe trip. Wheels up. Send lots of pictures. We're living through you this weekend, my brother.
On it, Jeff.
Have a day.